I'm Jay Wolpert. I'm the screenwriter of Century of November.
Excellent. And then you can look at me for the whole rest. Perfect.
Terrific.
So the first natural question would be why? Why did you want to be a part of this project?
You think that's a natural question, that why should I want to be a part of this project? Therein lies the story. Actually, the real truth is, it was a classy piece of material. I get to do a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is good. When I say that, I mean I got to adapt the Count of Monte Cristo, and that was terrific. Pirates of the Caribbean was fun. I've even done an adaptation of The Sword and the Stone, which was one of my favorite books. And so it's not like I ordinarily get, but now. But what I never get is I don't get stuff that has that sheen to it the way English Patient had a sheen to it. It just doesn't come my way. Action comes my way, fantasy comes my way, fun comes my way, that sort. Daring do. But real drama of this kind against the canvas that this is played against, which is World War I, the way Gone with the Wind was played against the Civil War, that was special, and especially since the book itself is written beautifully. And that really was the first thing that took me, was that the book came, I looked at it, and I thought, wow, this is really terrific. And then my second thought was, what in the world are these people sending this to me?
Why do you think they did?
Well, who knows? New Year's Eve, it seemed like a good idea. What happened was, I got a call from my agent, and he said, there's this book, and some guys from Canada, and I don't know, and I mean, if you want it, I'll send it to you. And I said, well, send it to me. And I took it, and I read it. Oh, and it came with a letter. Well, let's tell the truth. It came with a letter, that's right. And the letter was extraordinarily flattering. It came from Patrick Stark, who's one of the producers on the project. And Patrick waxed extraordinarily about the adaptation of Count of Monte Cristo that I had done. Well, a good way to get my attention is by flattering me, anytime, yes, and so I confess. I said, at least I should do is read this guy's book, and I did, and I was just blown away. And I told my agent, I said, I got to tell you, this is something I don't usually get. It's something really of a different league entirely. Again, we're not making value judgments. We're just about different kinds of things. It's just that this had a different feel to it entirely. And so he said, well, I mean, do you really want to do that? I said, no, but I'll call him up. And the reason was because it was not a studio movie, which meant, you know what it means. There's a whole chain of events that occurs when it's not a studio movie. First of all, it means you have to get the financing. Second of all, it means the financing isn't going to be enormous. Will the bloody thing get made at all? All that stuff, which means that I would be off the market for studio movies that I tend to get sent. So my agent and my lawyer already hated these poor people. And so I called up Patrick and I said, Patrick, first of all, I want to tell you just extraordinarily flattered, how extraordinarily flattered I am. I really am. And I read the book, and I tell you, I understand why you're so excited about it. I could understand that. It's not going to happen with me, but I wanted to thank you. And well, why is it going to happen with you? Well, because my agent and my lawyer already hate you. And he said, but why? He said, well, then I went through it. He said, well, I'm very encouraged. I said, Patrick, did you hear what I said? How could you be encouraged by that? He said, I'm encouraged. And this went on over months and months of me saying no, but I don't want this to sound like I was, just being coy or whatever it was. It wasn't that. It kept on haunting me. And there was a part of me that kept on being more and more sorry that I wasn't involved. And he calls me up one time and he says, okay, what is it that you hate about doing a studio movie? And I said, what do you mean? He says, because we can't pay you what you'd ordinarily get. You're right. But whatever we can do that is not in that form, that you don't like about studios, we're going to endeavor to make that happen. Well, you had to love them. You just had to love them. And as this was going on, this courtship, I began to feel like, unless I did this movie, I was a villain in a Lassie movie. I mean, I wanted to be on their side. You know, I didn't want to be the guy, I didn't want to be Edward Arnold, you know, who said, get out of here, and where's your mortgage? And I wanted to be, these guys were the heroes of this story. And so I said, finally, if we can make this happen, I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. And Nick, who is Patrick's partner, both of them did everything they could, and I did everything I could from my side, and we went around and did all kinds of things because we were in love with the same piece of material. And so far, I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure.
No, Patrick could have been as earnest as Leave It to Beaver, and if it hadn't been a good book, you still wouldn't be here. We're just waiting. You okay? It's okay, no worries.
Doesn't mean you're not a nice. Doesn't mean you're not a nice person.
I'm sure you're lovely. Now, I could take my coat off, so that was good.
Right.
Now, if it wasn't good source material, and you used some really interesting comparisons. You said The English Patient, one of my favorite movies ever. You said Gone with the Wind. You said classy.
Yeah.
What is it about this novel, for those of us who haven't read it, that someone is using those comparisons?
Wow. Well, it's about important stuff. It's about war. It's about who gets left when that happens. It's about a theme that I love, which is that, some are born great, some are whatever great, but some have greatness thrust upon them. It's about those quiet people who find a strength in them somehow that they didn't know they had, and bloom. Those people, it's so lucky, all those people who have the charisma in them. It's so easy for them. But I'm always drawn to the guy who doesn't, and who manages nevertheless. It's about that. It's got an enormous amount of heart. It's not sentimental. It's sense of limits, which is always a big part of classy material to me. It's the refusal to go over the top, but to move you anyway. All those things. It's a very special piece of material.
Set the story up for us. What is Century of
Well,
about?
What the story is about is it takes place in an extraordinary time in history. We know about one part of that time, but we don't know enough about the other, which is where it seemed like both man and nature was conspiring to destroy us all. It's 1918, and it's World War I, which is an extraordinarily cataclysmic war. World War II gets all the press. The Civil War gets all the press. But World War I was just an absolute butcher shop. I mean, just appalling. At the same time, the Spanish flu is just decimating Europe and coming over to North America. And it's just, wherever you go, it's blight. And it looks like, honest to God, the judgment of God. It was that kind of time. And against this, a very simple man, a passive man, really, a man who is acted upon and is used to it, gets the news that his son in the last days of the war is dead. And he feels the need because he has nothing left, his wife has died years ago, he feels the need to find where this happened, to just walk the places he walked. And so he decides to to go over there in the last days of the war and right after the war, to go over there and find that, but it turns out to be, in effect, an odyssey, because there's all kinds of things happening. One of the things, for example, and a very big part of the script and a big part of the book, is he is caught in London. And I say caught, you wouldn't think. When we think of celebrations like the end of World War II, we see that Life magazine article and the sailor bending over the girl and kissing her on the cover and all that stuff. Well, let me tell you, being caught in London on November 11th, 1918 was no fun. I mean, all hell was breaking loose there. It was anarchy. And there are various things that occur on the ride crossing Canada to Halifax, on the ship from Halifax to England, on the boat from across the Channel to France, and then what happens in France itself is worthy of Homer. It is that kind of a thing, and the reason he is doing all this is because, and the reason why he wants to be there is he wants to bury hope. He wants to just wring out of him any feeling that a knock on the door would ever mean his son was coming back. And he is convinced he has nothing to live for, and in this process finds out that he might be wrong. It's really special stuff.